My wife turned intimacy into perfect timing control. I documented 3 years of excuses, packed my suitcase and walked out to reclaim self-respect. You know what's funny about perfect timing? It's never actually perfect for the person waiting, but it sure is convenient for the person making excuses. My wife had turned delayed intimacy into an art form, and I was the fool who kept buying tickets to a show that never started. For 3 years, I heard every variation of not tonight you could imagine. At first, it was stress from work. Then it was the wrong time of the month. After that, she needed to feel more emotionally connected first. When I worked on that connection, suddenly the house wasn't clean enough for her to relax. When the house was spotless, she was too tired from cleaning to think about anything else. But the real masterpiece was when she introduced the concept of perfect timing. She'd look at me with those sincere eyes and explain how intimacy needed to happen when everything aligned just right. The stars, her mood, the temperature, her energy levels, my behavior from the past week, and about 15 other factors that seemed to change daily. I remember the conversation that finally opened my eyes. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, when I approached the subject again. Without even looking up, she said, "Soon, honey. I just need everything to be perfect. You want it to be special, right?" That word, special. Like she was doing me some grand favor by considering it. Like I should be grateful for the possibility of maybe, potentially, someday receiving affection from my own wife. The pattern became crystal clear when I started paying attention. Every promise came with conditions. Every condition led to new conditions. It was like trying to unlock a door that kept growing new locks every time you found the right key. Last month, she created what she called our intimacy roadmap. She actually wrote it down with specific dates and requirements. First, I needed to plan a romantic evening. Then, she needed a full week of stress-free work. After that, we needed to have 3 deep conversations about our future. The list went on and on. I followed every single requirement. I planned the perfect evening, helped manage her stress, had those conversations. But when the designated day arrived, suddenly she felt pressured by the schedule and needed everything to happen more naturally. The roadmap became a roadblock. That's when I realized what was really happening. This wasn't about timing or conditions or stress. This was about control, pure and simple. She had found the perfect way to keep me on a leash while never actually delivering on her promises. The most infuriating part? She acted like she was the victim in all of this. Whenever I showed frustration, she'd turn it around and make me feel guilty for having needs. "You're being selfish," she'd say. "Can't you see I'm trying? I just need you to be patient." Patient? I'd been patient for 3 years. I'd been understanding, supportive, and accommodating. I'd bent over backward to meet every ridiculous condition she set. And what did I get for it? More conditions. But here's what she didn't count on. She married a man who eventually stops playing games he can't win. And this week, I realized something important. She was right about timing being everything. The timing was perfect. Perfect for me to stop waiting for her permission to have self-respect. The final straw came Tuesday evening. She looked at me with that same practiced expression and said, "I know I've been putting this off, but I promise this weekend will be different. I just need you to help me feel more appreciated first." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I smiled. Not a happy smile, but the kind of smile you give someone when you finally understand a joke they've been playing on you. "You know what? You're absolutely right about timing. And my timing is about to be perfect too." She looked confused. Good. It was time for her to feel what confusion felt like. Because while she'd been busy scheduling our intimacy around her convenience, I'd been scheduling something else entirely. Something that didn't require her approval or her perfect conditions. For the first time in 3 years, I was about to take control of my own timing. And unlike her promises, mine was going to be delivered exactly when I said it would be. The next morning, I decided to run an experiment. If my wife was so concerned about perfect timing, let's see what happened when I stopped trying to create it. No more romantic gestures. No more attempting to meet her endless conditions. No more chasing after scraps of affection like a desperate puppy. I went about my day normally, but with one crucial difference. I didn't initiate anything. No good morning kiss. No casual touches. No suggestions about spending time together. I was polite, functional, but completely neutral. Like a roommate who paid half the bills. The change in her behavior was immediate and fascinating. By noon, she was asking if I was feeling okay. By evening, she was practically hovering around me, making small talk about nothing. It was like watching someone realize their favorite toy had stopped responding to their commands. "Are you mad about something?" she asked while I was reading on my tablet. "Not at all," I replied without looking up. "Just focused on other things." "What other things?" I glanced at her with mild interest. "Life, work, personal goals, the usual." She didn't like that answer. I could see the gears turning in her head. This wasn't part of her script. In her version of our relationship, I was supposed to be the one pursuing, pleading, and waiting for her perfect timing. My sudden indifference was throwing off her entire system. By the third day, she shifted into overdrive. Suddenly, she was full of affection and promises. She touched my arm while talking, sat closer to me during dinner, even suggested we watch a movie together. But here's the fascinating part. She still wasn't actually offering anything concrete. She was just increasing the intensity of her promises. "I've been thinking about what you said," she told me Friday evening, "about us needing to reconnect. I want to make this weekend really special." I nodded politely. "That's nice. I mean it this time. I know I've been putting things off, but I'm ready to prioritize us. When you're ready, you'll let me know," I said, returning to my book. The confusion on her face was priceless. This wasn't how our conversations usually went. Normally, I'd get excited about her promises, start planning, maybe even thank her for finally seeing my point. Instead, I was treating her grand announcement like she'd just told me she might do the dishes later. Saturday morning, she escalated further. She actually created a detailed schedule for the weekend, complete with specific times for meals, activities, and, yes, intimacy. She presented it to me like she was offering a gift. "Look, I even wrote it down so you know I'm serious," she said, showing me her carefully crafted timeline. "Sunday evening after dinner. Everything will be perfect." I studied her schedule with the same enthusiasm I'd show a grocery list. "Interesting system you've got there. You don't seem excited about us finally having time together." I set down her schedule and looked at her directly. "I've learned not to get excited about things that might not happen. It's better for my mental health." That hit her wrong. She started explaining how this time was different, how she'd cleared her schedule, how she'd made sure all the conditions were right. But the more she talked, the more I realized something. Even her promises were still about her control. She was still the one setting the terms, the timing, the conditions. "You know what I find interesting?" I said, interrupting her explanation. "You're scheduling intimacy like it's a dentist appointment, down to the exact time and day. I thought you'd appreciate the certainty." "What I appreciate is spontaneity, desire, the feeling that someone actually wants to be with me, not that they're checking it off their to-do list." Her face fell. "That's not what this is. Then what is it?" She couldn't answer, because we both knew what it was. It was her maintaining control, while trying to keep me happy enough to stop complaining. It was a scheduled obligation, not genuine desire. Sunday came and went. Surprise, surprise, something came up. Her sister called with drama, and she needed to be emotionally available for family. The perfectly planned evening became another perfectly planned disappointment. "I'm sorry," she said that night. "Next weekend, I promise." No interruptions. I just nodded. Sure. But inside, I was smiling because her experiment had given me all the data I needed. She didn't want me. She wanted control over me. She didn't desire intimacy. She desired the power to grant or withhold it. And most importantly, she had no intention of actually changing anything. She'd just proven that even when she made specific promises with specific timelines, she'd still find a way to move the goalposts. The game was rigged, and I was the only one who hadn't known it. But now I knew, and knowing changed everything. Because while she was busy scheduling our next disappointment, I was busy scheduling something else entirely, something that would finally give both of us the perfect timing we'd been looking for. Monday evening, I decided it was time for a direct conversation. Not an argument, not a plea for understanding, but a clear, logical presentation of facts. I waited until she was settled in the living room, then sat across from her with a notepad. "We need to talk," I said, placing the notepad on the coffee table. She looked at it suspiciously. "What's that?" "Documentation. I've been tracking something for the past 6 months, and I think you should see the pattern." I opened to the first page. January 15th, you said we needed to wait until after your work presentation. January 22nd, said the timing felt forced. February 3rd, needed to feel more emotionally connected first. Her face changed as I continued reading. February 14th, Valentine's Day, said holiday intimacy felt cliché. February 20th, too stressed about your sister's wedding planning. Are you seriously keeping a record of our personal life? I'm keeping a record of promises made and promises broken. March 7th, wanted to lose 5 pounds first. March 21st, needed the house deep cleaned for proper relaxation. She tried to interrupt, but I held up a hand. I'm not done. April 2nd, wanted to plan a romantic weekend getaway instead. April 30th, needed to feel more appreciated first. May 15th, wanted to wait until after your mother's visit. This is ridiculous. Is it? Because I have 4 more months documented here. Each entry has a specific promise and a specific excuse that appeared exactly when that promise was supposed to be fulfilled. She stood up, clearly agitated. I can't believe you're treating our relationship like a business transaction. I'm treating it like what it is, a series of commitments that one person makes and the other person believes. The problem is only one of us is actually keeping commitments. That's not fair. You know I've been dealing with a lot of stress. I flipped to another page. Stress. That's interesting because according to this, you've been dealing with stress for 8 months straight. Work stress, family stress, financial stress, health stress, social stress. It's almost like stress is your go-to explanation for everything. Because it's real. I don't doubt that. But here's what I find fascinating. Your stress never seems to interfere with anything else. You still go out with friends when you're stressed. You still binge watch shows when you're stressed. You still shop online when you're stressed. Stress only becomes a problem when it comes to being intimate with your husband. She sat back down, posture defensive. You're being manipulative. No, I'm being observant. There's a difference. I closed the notepad. You want to know what's really manipulative? Making promises you have no intention of keeping, creating conditions that change the moment they're met, making your husband feel guilty for having normal expectations in a marriage. I never made you feel guilty. Really. Because every time I express frustration, you tell me I'm being selfish. Every time I mention our lack of intimacy, you tell me I'm pressuring you. Every time I try to address this issue, somehow I become the problem. She was quiet for a moment. Then she tried a different approach. I know I haven't been the best wife lately, but I'm trying. Can't you see that I'm trying? Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're trying to manage me, not trying to be with me. You're trying to keep me satisfied with promises while never actually delivering on them. That's not true. Then prove it. Right now. No conditions, no perfect timing, no scheduling. Just prove that you actually want to be with me and not just control me. The silence stretched between us. She looked uncomfortable, trapped, and that's when I knew I had my answer. You can't, can you? I said quietly. Because this was never about timing or stress or conditions. This was about power. You found a way to keep me hoping while never actually giving me what I was hoping for. You're twisting everything around. I'm stating facts. And here's another fact. I'm done playing this game. I'm done being managed, manipulated, and strung along with empty promises. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. Don't. Because even now, you're not offering anything real. You're just trying to diffuse the situation so you can go back to your schedule of maybe someday. What do you want from me? Nothing. That's the point. I don't want anything from you anymore. I've spent 3 years wanting something you were never going to give, but I'm done wanting it. The look on her face was a mixture of panic and confusion. This wasn't how these conversations usually ended. Usually she'd make another promise, I'd accept it, and we'd reset the cycle. But this time, I wasn't accepting anything. So, what happens now? She asked. I stood up and picked up my notepad. Now you get exactly what you wanted. Perfect timing. Because my timing is about to be absolutely perfect. She didn't understand what I meant. But she would soon enough. Because while she'd been busy perfecting the art of delay, I'd been perfecting the art of action. And unlike her promises, my actions were going to be delivered exactly on schedule. The next morning, she woke up with a completely different attitude. Gone was the defensive posture from the night before. Instead, she was practically glowing with newfound enthusiasm about our relationship. It was like watching someone flip a switch. I've been thinking about what you said, she announced over breakfast. You're right. I have been putting things off too much, so I want to make you a real commitment. I continued eating my cereal without much reaction. Oh yes, this Friday night. No excuses, no conditions, no delays. Just us. Just us doing what? You know what? Everything we've been talking about. I'm ready to make this a priority. I looked at her with mild interest. That's nice. She seemed surprised by my lukewarm response. I thought you'd be more excited. I've learned not to get excited about Friday plans on Tuesday morning. A lot can happen between now and then. Nothing's going to happen. I'm committed to this. Committed to what exactly? She looked confused by the question. To us, to being intimate, to making this work. Under what conditions? No conditions. That's the whole point. I set down my spoon and gave her my full attention. Really? No conditions at all? Well, I mean, I'd like the house to be clean. You know how I can't relax when things are messy. There's condition number 1. That's not a condition, that's just basic comfort. What else? What do you mean? What else do you need to feel comfortable? Because in my experience, the list is never as short as you initially present it. She thought for a moment. I guess it would be nice if we could have a good dinner first, something romantic, maybe some wine. Condition number 2. You're being ridiculous. These aren't conditions. They're just normal things that make the evening special. Keep going. What else? I don't know. Maybe we could talk first. Really connect emotionally before we connect physically. How long should this conversation be? I don't know. Until it feels right. And what if it doesn't feel right? Then we wait until it does. I leaned back in my chair. So let me get this straight. You're making me a commitment with no conditions except the house needs to be clean, we need a romantic dinner and wine, and we need an emotionally connecting conversation of undetermined length until you feel it's right to proceed. When you put it like that, it sounds complicated. It sounds like every other promise you've made, except this time you're presenting the conditions up front, instead of introducing them as we go. She was getting frustrated. What do you want from me? I'm trying to compromise here. No, you're trying to maintain control while making it look like compromise. You're still the one setting all the terms. You're still the one who decides when we've talked enough, when the mood is right, when the conditions are met. Someone has to make those decisions. Why? Because that's how these things work. According to who? You. Because in my experience, when two people actually want to be together, they don't need a project manager to coordinate the logistics. She stood up from the table. Fine. You want spontaneous? You want no conditions? Tonight, right now if you want. I almost laughed. You're offering me pity intimacy. How romantic. It's not pity. It's me trying to prove that I'm serious. No, it's you panicking because your usual tactics aren't working. You're trying to give me just enough to reset the system so you can go back to your schedule of delays and excuses. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Because you went from months of not tonight to right now in the span of one conversation. That's not genuine desire. That's damage control. She sat back down, looking defeated. I don't know what you want from me anymore. I want you to stop treating our marriage like a negotiation. I want you to stop scheduling affection like it's a chore. I want you to actually want to be with me, not just go through the motions to keep me quiet. I do want to be with you. No, you want to manage me. There's a difference. How can I prove that's not true? You can't. Because every solution you come up with involves you being in control. Every offer you make comes with your terms and your timing. Even when you're trying to be spontaneous, you're still the one deciding when and how. She was quiet for a long moment. So, what are you saying? I'm saying, I'm tired of being a project you manage instead of a husband you desire. I'm tired of having to earn what should be freely given. I'm tired of being grateful for scraps of affection from my own wife. I never made you beg. You made me something worse. You made me hope over and over again. False hope based on false promises. They weren't false promises. I meant them when I made them. But you never kept them, which means they were false regardless of your intentions. She tried one more approach. What if we started over? What if we just forgot about everything that's happened and tried again? I looked at her carefully. Start over with what? The same person who's been making and breaking promises for 3 years? The same person who just offered me a list of conditions while claiming there were no conditions? I can change. Can you? Because change requires acknowledging there's a problem. And you still think the problem is my expectations, not your behavior. The silence stretched between us. She knew I was right, but she couldn't admit it, because admitting it would mean giving up the control she'd worked so hard to maintain. So, what happens now? She asked quietly. I stood up and put my bowl in the sink. Now you get to experience perfect timing from a different perspective. Because while you've been perfecting the art of delay, I've been perfecting the art of decision-making, and my timing is about to be absolutely perfect. While she was busy creating new schedules and promises, I was busy creating something else entirely, a plan. Not for romance or reconciliation, but for freedom. And unlike her promises, my plan had specific deadlines that I actually intended to meet. I started with the practical stuff: bank accounts, credit cards, insurance policies. Amazing how much paperwork accumulates when you've been married for 7 years. I made copies of everything, organized it all in a folder, and stored it somewhere safe. Every document that mattered, every financial record, every legal paper. The timing was perfect for this kind of preparation. She was so focused on trying to fix our intimacy issues that she didn't notice me handling the business side of our life with unusual efficiency. When she saw me going through files, she probably thought I was doing taxes or organizing our records. She was half right. Next, I called my brother. We'd always been close, but I'd been too embarrassed to tell him about my marriage problems. This time, I laid it all out: the delays, the excuses, the manipulation disguised as consideration. He listened without judgment, then offered me his guest room for as long as I needed it. I wondered when you'd finally get tired of being treated like a tenant in your own marriage, he said. What changed? I realized I was waiting for permission to have self-respect. And the person I was asking for permission was the same person who benefited from me not having it. When are you going to tell her? When my timing is perfect, not hers. The next step was the hardest. I had to change how I interacted with her completely. Not cold or mean, but detached. Professional, like a business partner wrapping up a failed venture. She noticed the change immediately. You're being distant again, she said Wednesday evening. I'm being focused. On what? On things that actually matter. She didn't like that response. I matter, don't I? Because people who matter don't spend 3 years proving how little they care about their spouse's feelings. That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair, but it's accurate. Thursday morning, she tried a different approach. She actually attempted to be physically affectionate without any prompting. A kiss goodbye, a hug when I came home from work, casual touches throughout the evening. It was like watching someone perform a role they'd forgotten how to play naturally. This is nice, she said, cuddling up to me on the couch. Don't you think so? I looked at her with curiosity. I think it's interesting timing. You've been completely uninterested in physical affection for months, and suddenly you're touchy-feely. What changed? I realized I've been taking you for granted. When did you realize that? The other day during our conversation. So you've been taking me for granted for 3 years, but you only realized it when I stopped accepting it. She didn't have an answer because we both knew the truth. She wasn't being affectionate because she suddenly desired me. She was being affectionate because she sensed something shifting and was trying to regain control. I'm trying to make things better, she said. Are you? Or are you trying to make things go back to how they were? What's the difference? The difference is that better would require acknowledging the problem and changing your behavior. Going back to how things were just requires getting me to accept the same treatment I've been accepting. Friday came, and with it her promised evening of no conditions and perfect timing. She'd cleaned the house, prepared a nice dinner, even bought wine. She was trying to fulfill her end of the bargain, probably hoping it would reset our entire dynamic. But I wasn't interested in the bargain anymore. I wasn't interested in her finally keeping one promise after breaking dozens. I wasn't interested in scheduled affection or negotiated intimacy. Everything looks nice, I said, surveying her preparations. I told you I was serious this time. I can see you've put a lot of effort into this. So, are you ready for our evening? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not anger, not frustration, not even hope. Just clarity. Pure, perfect clarity. You know what? I am ready. I'm ready for perfect timing. I'm ready for everything to align just right. I'm ready for all the conditions to be met. She smiled, thinking she'd finally won. I'm glad. But not for this. For something else entirely. The smile faded. What do you mean? I mean that while you've been perfecting the art of delay, I've been perfecting the art of action. And my timing is about to be absolutely perfect. I walked to the closet and pulled out a suitcase. Her face went white. What are you doing? I'm giving both of us exactly what we want. You wanted control over timing, and I want freedom from it. Tonight feels perfect for both of those things. She stood there watching me pack, probably trying to process what was happening. This wasn't part of her script. In her version, I was supposed to be grateful for her finally keeping a promise, not preparing to leave. "This is crazy," she said. "I did everything you asked for." "No. You did everything you thought would get me to stop asking." I kept packing. She cycled through every emotion she'd perfected over the years: confusion, anger, desperation, and finally panic. "You can't be serious. We can work through this." We've been working through this for 3 years. The only thing that's changed is I finally stopped believing we were making progress. I made you dinner. I cleaned the house. I did everything you wanted. I stopped packing and looked at her. "You did everything you thought would get me to shut up and accept scraps of affection. That's not the same thing. What do you want from me? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. I want you to stop treating our marriage like a negotiation. But you can't do that because control is more important to you than connection." She tried to grab my arm. "Please don't throw away 7 years over this." "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm retrieving my self-respect from someone who's been holding it hostage. That's not fair." "You're right. It's not fair that I waited 3 years for you to want your own husband. It's not fair that I had to document broken promises just to prove I wasn't crazy. It's not fair that you turned intimacy into a reward system, where I was always failing to earn enough points." She started crying. Real tears this time, not the strategic ones. "I love you." "No. You love controlling me. There's a difference. I can change. I swear I can change. You had 3 years to change. You chose to perfect your excuses instead." I closed the suitcase and headed for the door. She followed, still trying to negotiate. "Where are you going to go?" "Somewhere I don't have to schedule affection or beg for basic consideration. You're making a mistake." I turned to face her one last time. The mistake was thinking that someone who respected me would treat me the way you've been treating me. The mistake was accepting promises instead of actions. The mistake was believing patience would eventually be rewarded. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away?" "I'm going to walk toward something better. Toward a life where I don't have to earn love from someone who promised to give it freely." She made one final attempt. "What if I prove I've changed? What if I show you I can be different?" "You can't prove it to me anymore. You had your chance to prove it, and you used that chance to prove the opposite." I opened the door and stepped outside. The evening air felt different somehow, cleaner, like I could finally breathe properly. "This is your loss, too," she called after me. I turned back with a smile. "You're wrong about that. This is my gain. For the first time in 3 years, my timing was perfect." I got in my car and drove away, leaving her standing in the doorway of a house that had stopped feeling like a home months ago. In my rearview mirror, I could see her watching me leave, probably still believing I'd come back after a few days of cooling off. But I wasn't cooling off. I was warming up to the idea of a life where I didn't have to wait for permission to be happy, where my needs mattered as much as hers, where intimacy wasn't a scheduled obligation but a natural expression of mutual desire. She wanted perfect timing. Well, she got it. The timing was absolutely perfect for both of us to get exactly what we'd been asking for. She got total control over her own life, and I got freedom from hers. As I drove toward my brother's house, I realized something important. I'd spent 3 years trying to unlock a door that was never meant to open. But the real door, the one that led to my freedom and self-respect, had been unlocked the whole time. I just needed the courage to walk through it. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.